Bonjour tout le monde. 2 months ago, I was at a rink in Edmonton where I learned to play hockey. That's about as far as you can get from the grandeur of Rideau Hall. And I was there because I was putting up my hand to run for the leadership of the Liberal Party of Canada. And I was doing that because I knew our country needed to take action. We needed to act to fix our economy. We needed to act to fight the Americans. We needed to act to deal with Donald Trump's tariffs. Il y a 9 jours, notre nouveau gouvernement a prêté serment et nous sommes immédiatement passés à l'action. Cette semaine, nous avons conclu un nouvel accord portant sur la défense nationale avec l'Australie pour protéger le Canada. Nous avons renforcé nos relations en matière de sécurité avec la France et le Royaume-Uni pour protéger les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Nous avons lancé des discussions sur de nouveaux accords commerciaux avec l'Union européenne pour aider davantage les entreprises canadiennes. We eliminated the tax on carbon for consumers, for small businesses, and for farmers to end the division that it was creating amongst Canadians.
Européenne pour aider davantage les entreprises canadiennes. We eliminated the tax on carbon for consumers, for small businesses, and for farmers to end the division that it was creating amongst Canadians. Because we are stronger together. We reversed the increase in the capital gains tax so that builders are encouraged to take risks and be rewarded when they succeed. When I met with the premiers in Ottawa on Friday, we agreed to eliminate barriers to trade and mobility inside our country. And the federal government is leading by committing to legislate the end of all federal barriers to interprovincial trade by July 1st. Together, we will push to create one Canadian economy by Canada Day, because we are stronger together. This past week, we acted to protect workers using the proceeds of our retaliatory tariffs against America's unjustified trade actions. We acted to unlock major infrastructure projects and get them moving rapidly, including clean and conventional energy, critical minerals, and new trade corridors with reliable trading partners. We acted to create new supports for farmers and businesses during this trade war. We expanded dental care for millions of more Canadians. And we took all of these actions and more to create the foundation to build a stronger Canada. There is so much more to do to secure Canada, to invest in Canada, to build Canada, to unite Canada. That's why I'm asking for a strong, positive mandate from my fellow Canadians. I've just requested that the Governor-General dissolve Parliament and call an election for April 28th. And she has agreed. We are facing the most significant crisis of our lifetimes because of President Trump's unjustified trade actions and his threats to our sovereignty. Our response must be to build a strong economy and a more secure Canada. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen. We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons. We have to look out for ourselves. We have to look out for each other. Nous savons que nous devons veiller les unes sur les autres. Nous ne pouvons pas contrôler le président américain, mais nous pouvons contrôler notre destin. Nous sommes maîtres chez nous. We can control our destiny. We can have a new Canada built by us, for us. We can give ourselves more than any foreign government can take away. And the best way we can deal with this crisis is to build our strength here at home and help people who will be hit hardest by these tariffs. That's the right thing to do. That's the fair thing to do. That's the Canadian thing to do. That's what makes us strong. As part of that strategy, today I'm proposing a middle-class tax cut to help all working Canadians get ahead. We will cut the lowest income tax bracket by 1 percentage point for a middle-class tax cut that will benefit a two-income family by up to $825 a year. Aujourd'hui, je propose de réduire les impôts pour la classe moyenne pour aider tous les travailleurs canadiens. Nous réduirons d'un point de pourcentage la tranche d'imposition la plus basse. Cette réduction d'impôts pour la classe moyenne permettra de redonner $825 à une famille à deux revenus. I'm asking Canadians for a strong, positive mandate to deal with President Trump and to build a new Canadian economy that works for everyone. Because I know we need change, big change, positive change. You see, my generation was fortunate. For us, there were more opportunities and life was more affordable. You had to work hard, but you could get ahead. That was the bargain. But for the generations that have followed, they're working just as hard or even harder than we did. But they're struggling to pay the rent, to put groceries on the table, and to save for their kids' educations. J'ai passé toute ma carrière à comprendre que le défi est de taille, mais je veux que les Canadiens et les Canadiennes comprennent que nous avons tout ce dont nous avons besoin pour réussir ici au Canada, si nous avons le bon plan et si nous travaillons ensemble. Parce que bâtir un Canada fort, ça prend tout le monde. Et il faudra faire preuve de leadership. It's easy to be negative about everything when you've never fixed anything. It's easy to be negative about everything when you've never built anything, when you've never had to make a payroll. But negative slogans aren't solutions. Anger isn't action. Division isn't strength. Negativity won't win a trade war. Negativity won't pay the rent or the mortgage. Negativity won't bring down the price of groceries. And negativity won't make Canada strong. Nous avons vu où our country has given me everything. I stood up in Edmonton 2 months ago, and I'm standing here today because I want to give it all back to Canada. So that every Canadian kid, whether they're growing up in Nanaimo or Montreal or St. John or Scarborough or Inuvik, has the same opportunities that I had, the same hope, the same confidence in a brighter future. It's time for all of us to come together and be strong. So I'm asking for your vote so we can be Canada strong, un Canada fort. Vive le Canada. And with that,
Charles with the Toronto Star. Sir, why are you throwing the country into an election in the middle of a tariff war? And if you think it's so necessary now, then why not make it longer so Canadians can really test drive you to see if you represent the change you claim to represent?
Well, a couple of things, Tonda. First is that we have put in place a tremendous amount of change in the 9 days that I have been Prime Minister. That includes changes to taxes, including the announcement today of a middle-class tax cut. But very importantly, we put in place protections for workers. So we made a commitment right from the start that we would use all revenues from retaliatory tariffs to protect our workers. And we put in place changes to the EI system in order to do that. I note that Mr. Poilievre has taken that money and said he will use it for a tax cut. Doesn't care about workers being in place. We put in place protections for businesses through this period. We have shown the scale of our ambition in terms of creating what Canadians have asked for. And I've heard this time and time again across this great country. Canadians want one Canadian economy, not 13. They want us to break down those barriers. So we brought together the first ministers, the premiers of the provinces. We hammered out a consensus about achieving that. We're picking up on the model that Nova Scotia and others have put in place. We're making a commitment at the federal level to legislate the removal of all these barriers by Canada Day, so we can have free trade by Canada Day. So we've done a lot. I could go on, but we've done a lot in the 9 days to put in place many of the foundations. But what's important is that the government has a mandate from the Canadian people to finish the job, of building that Canadian economy, to finish the job of diversifying our trading partners, and to have a strong mandate to stand up to Donald Trump and the Americans and negotiate the best deal for Canadians. And that's what I will do.
After that meeting Friday night, you said you linked Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives to Elon Musk and Donald Trump's approach to cutting taxes, regulations, foreign aid. Mr. Poilievre's just staked out his own platform pitch to Canadians right now, today saying that he will stand up to Trump, that a liberal's still just a liberal. So on what basis can you fairly compare the Canadian Conservatives to Trump-style Republican Conservatives?
Well, first, the comparisons are quite easy. You look at the language mirrors, and the track record of language stretches back over years. It's not a recent phenomenon, so straight from the language, number one. Secondly, from the intention. So Elon Musk stands up and says, and the Trump administration eliminates foreign aid. Within a few days, Pierre Poilievre flies in and out of Nunavut and says, I'm going to eliminate foreign aid. By the way, doesn't talk to the Premier, doesn't talk to local Indigenous leaders while he's there, not our approach, obviously. So a series of words plus proposals which are uncannily familiar with the proposals of the Trump administration. Very different from our approach, very different from approach for example, to building a housing market, both offering much greater supply, very different from our approach. I'll give you one last example because I know there's a long lineup of questions. Today, we announced that we are going to expand dental care. Now, the dental care program that was put in place several months ago now serves 1.8 million Canadians. 1.8 million Canadians have received dental care under this program. These are people who could not afford dental care previously. Pierre Poilievre pretends they don't exist. We've just expanded the potential pool by another 4.5 million Canadians who also are in that situation. That is a very different approach to Canada. That's a Canada that brings Canadians together, protects all, and that's the Canada we're offering.
Good afternoon. You've changes and you're promising this middle-class tax cut, but you're also making new spending commitments. So how do you plan to pay for that? And what kind of cuts will you have to make to keep up with your promise of a deficit below 1% of GDP?
Well, a couple of things. One is that we are looking at driving efficiency in government, in other words, productivity in government, by flipping around the approach to government, which is to concentrate on the outcomes as opposed to the dollars in. And so that's part of the reason why, it's the core reason why we put in place a new Ministry Department of Government Transformation, use a series of reviews on programs, but also new technologies, AI, to drive those productivity. I'm going to, if I may, actually just clarify something which you said, which is that we're differentiating between spending less as a government, and I would recall that government spending has gone up around 9% on average over the last several years. So we're going to get that level of spending increase down. That in and of itself will create room. But what we're concentrating on is Canada investing more. It is time to build. It's a tremendous time to build out this economy. It's what we need to do to create jobs, higher paying jobs and growth. And we will use scarce taxpayers' dollars to catalyze huge private investment in the likes of opportunities that we discussed as First Ministers on Friday. And for those who didn't watch it, I can understand why people wouldn't have watched that, so I'll say it now. This is clean and conventional energy. These are new trade corridors. This is millions and millions of homes in this country to get the cost of new homes down for all Canadians. And that's what we're looking to do as a government. That's what we will do as a government. And we put many of the foundations in place in just 9 days. We're asking for a mandate to finish that job.